So how long did it take to transform my body? Well, I've been doing this for 5 years now. It took me 2.5 years before I started seeing results because I was doing things all wrong, and I don't want that to happen to you. In this video, I'm going to talk about what my mistakes were and what I put right to finally get the body of my dreams. Hello fam, and welcome to my channel. My name's Melissa Neal, and this channel is all about helping you if you're a woman over 40 or like me over 50 and over 60 and beyond, get in fantastic shape. And I get asked all the time about my own body transformation journey. You see pictures of people, don't you, on social media where they've got from point A to point B, like me in these pictures, and often you don't understand what's been going on in between. And in my case, I had 2.5 years where things weren't working properly because I wasn't doing the right things. And so what happened, although I was losing weight, I actually still carried a lot of body fat around my midsection, and that happens a lot over the age of 40 because what I did was I did the things that worked in my younger days, but what happened in my 40s is they just didn't work anymore. So what mistakes did I make? Well, firstly, I did a ton of running. I was actually training for a half marathon when I looked like this, and I wasn't losing body fat doing a ton of running and other types of cardio. At the time, I thought it was really important and more important to get in cardio than it was strength training. So although I was doing strength training, I wasn't prioritizing it. And the second thing I did when I started to incorporate more strength training is I actually didn't eat prior to strength training or 5 hours afterwards because I was intermittent fasting. And that is a real mistake, not giving your body the correct nutrition for performance during your strength training sessions. And what happens if you don't eat is you don't build muscle. And thirdly, the strength training I was doing, because I had a trainer that gave me the wrong information, I was actually doing high repetitions. So things like 16 to 20 reps on a light to medium weight. And what you actually need to do is go as heavy as you possibly can, normally between the 8 to 12 rep range. That's going to give you what's called progressive overload and therefore hypertrophy. And hypertrophy is what you want for building muscle. Building muscle when you're over 40, it's not going to make you bulky. You're just putting back on the muscle that you've lost through the aging process. And what that's going to do is it's going to help you burn more fat. Now at this point, a couple of years in, I was improving my nutrition. So I was getting more protein in, but the problem is my calories were too low. So I was on about 1,300 calories trying to drop body fat, and that was too low for getting the maximum out of my strength training. And if you take your calories too low, what happens is it actually screws your metabolism. I mean, when I say that, you can build your metabolism back up, and that's what I did. If you take your calories too low, what's going to happen is your body adjusts to those really low calories, so it gets worse at burning fat. So that's a big mistake that I made, and often women make at this age, is they take their calories too low. Because I was on those really low calories, what I used to do is whole day cheat days. And of course that's undone everything that you've done during the week. And a better strategy is actually to have calories up higher generally, so that you're not going into starvation mode and then wanting to binge on food. That's what I was doing. Binging on food on a Saturday or a Sunday, or maybe even both days, and that really doesn't work. What we need to do is be consistent. So I've talked about what I did wrong. Let's get into what I did right. So 2.5 years in, I actually started to experience some progress, and these are the key things I changed. So I talked about the intermittent fasting. I stopped that and started fueling my body properly for strength training. So what does that mean? That means eating carbohydrate before you strength train and eating some protein and carbohydrate within an hour after strength training. And what does that do? That gives you performance in your workout. So it means you're going to be able to lift heavier, you're going to have more energy, and what that's going to do is build muscle more effectively. And this is the number one thing. When I started getting that right, I started actually seeing an improvement quite quickly within weeks of incorporating that strategy. Secondly, I started putting in more protein. So around 160 grams of protein, which is actually quite high for me. I was probably sitting at around 55 kilos, which is about 125 pounds. That was over 1 gram of protein for every pound in body weight that I recommend for you. And that increase of protein really helped me build that muscle. And I also started tracking my calories and macros. So we're talking about 35% protein, 35% carbohydrate and 30% fats. That kind of ratio, you can play around with it. So you might have 40% protein, 30% carbs and 30% fat. You're making sure your protein's really high. You're not skipping out on carbohydrate because you need carbohydrate to build muscle as well as protein. And importantly, I took my calories higher and took out the cheat days. So what that meant is I was more consistent over that 7 days, and I was in a smaller calorie deficit, but it was working much more effectively. Being up on higher calories, was up at around 1700 calories at that time. I'm taking in a bit more now. So that's what I did on nutrition. So what did I do on working out? Well, I cut back on all that cardio and really prioritize strength training 4 or 5 times a week. And what I did with strength training was heavy lifting. That's really important. And if you're wondering how heavy you should go, I can't tell you that, but I've made a video all about how to assess how heavy you should be going for you, because everyone's different. So I can't just give you a figure and say this is how heavy you should be going. But I was going very heavy for me, and I was going in that 8 to 12 rep range, 3 to up to 10 sets, because 10 sets is something called German volume training. And I was really dialing in on working to my maximum capacity on those workouts. I was really prioritizing the strength training and putting all my energy into that. I was also including an hour per week of high intensity interval training. So it wasn't a massive amount of cardio like it was before, and keeping those sessions down to 30 minutes or under is really important, because what can happen with too much cardio is you actually counteract the strength training. And when you're over 40, that's what's different. You need to prioritize that, because building muscle is going to help your body build its metabolism. So your basal metabolic rate is actually going to get better by doing strength training. And what's going to happen is you're going to burn fat even when you're just sat around. Doesn't that sound fantastic? The next thing I'm going to talk about is that I had a big switch in my mindset. And this is really important, because you can get the diet right, you can get the exercise right, but if you're not in the right frame of mind, it's going to be really difficult to achieve this, because what you need to have is consistency over time. I just said at the start of this, didn't I, that I've been doing this for 5 years. I've been consistent for 5 years, even though I had 2.5 years of failure. I kept going on. One of the people that inspired me to keep pressing on when I experienced all that failure was Ernestine Shepherd, because I thought, she can do it in her 80s. I'm only in my 50s. I must be able to do this. And that's what kept me going. So you've got to find a really strong reason why for yourself to keep you going, because what you need is consistency over time. It always wins out. If you can do this 80% of the time, but you're doing it for 6 months, 12 months, even years, wow, you are going to look amazing. So what did I do to work on my mindset? If eating is an issue for you, and it was an issue for me, because I would have these moments where I kind of binged on the weekends, and also when I was intermittent fasting, I kind of got really hungry, so it meant that I overate when it was time to eat. So it's getting control of your eating, and I've actually done a video on this, so do check that out. It's about changing your belief systems. So I started to have a bit more belief in myself. I started to believe that I could do it, and an inner narrative in my head telling myself that I was worthy of this transformation and that I was gonna achieve it. I focused a lot more on the process rather than the end result. So making sure I was delivering on the process. So that's things like doing meal prep. That's making sure you're scheduling in your workouts and you're completing your workouts and you were getting that performance that I talked about. And it could be you keep a journal of your workouts and how much weight you were lifting at each session so that you can improve on that, how many reps you're doing and how much weight you are lifting, so that you can make progression. And all you need to do is improve by 1%. But I really try to make every session that I do count and that I've actually achieved something during that session. I also worked on strategies that were going to help me with stress, because stress can sometimes lead to overeating for people or quitting. I mean, one of the big stress relievers for me is actually exercise or walking, and then I enjoy going out dancing and music. So it's making sure that those things are part of my life so that I can relieve stress. Who were the women that I really admired that were like role models for me? And I looked at their behavior, the way that they work out, the way that they approach their training, the way that they approach everything like meal prep. And I tried to model that behavior. I either talked to them or I watched content online where I saw what their kind of daily lives were like. And you can watch one of my what I eat in a days, or you can see the way that I train in my other videos. And you know, that's going to help you, isn't it? Understand how you should be approaching your own weight loss journey. So once I incorporated all of that, I really started to see a transformation in my body. And for me now, what I would say is it's a lifestyle. This is how I live from day to day. This is what I am going to be doing for the rest of my life. And if this video's inspired you to approach your fitness and weight loss in a different way, do let me know in the comments section if you found this helpful.